Hey guys, welcome back to another Flesh and Blood video. This video is proudly brought to you by the House of Cards, the official sponsor of my stream. Be sure to check out the link in the description below for all of your Flesh and Blood needs. If you've been playing Guardian for a while, then you're pretty aware that the Guardian Mirror generally is a 20 to 25 turn slog with a lot of Anothos being thrown back and forth. But Victor has kind of changed that as a whole, because Victor likes to block and throw the 3-for-8s and like try to play this more tempo-y style game as opposed to just playing the hammer and looking for card economy over 25 turn games. A lot of Victor builds are playing cards like Red Thunderquake and Red Macho Grande and Spinal Crush. I like playing these cards because they're 9 and 10 point attacks and they force your opponent to say, am I going to block with 3 cards and only do one thing, like more than likely throw the hammer here? Or am I going to block with 2 cards and take some damage? So you're forcing your opponent to make a decision on whether they want to block and keep life totals up, or whether they'd rather attack back and take some damage over the course of the game. The other piece about Victor in the Guardian Mirror that I really like is his ability to play 3-for-8s. Now, when I say 3-for-8s, I don't mean literally, because Chokeslam and Debilitate are actually 4-cost cards, but when you pair a Seismic Surge or a Tunic counter, you're able to have a 2-card 8, which gives you a 4-card capability of being able to block 6 and still attack for 8. There are 2 places, in my opinion, that Bravo actually gains a lot of points over Victor in the Guardian Mirror. The first off is the fact that he can play cards like Crippling Crush and Starstruck. These are Bravo specializations that hit for 10 and 11 that as Victor we're just not able to play. The second thing that gives Bravo a big leg up in the matchup, and probably the most obvious, is his ability. Bravo's hero text is just pay 2 to have Dominate. So you can have Dominate on demand whenever you'd like with Bravo, and late game, you can close out against Victor. Thanks for stopping by, guys. I hope you enjoy the matches. Okay, so we have a pretty good opening hand here, to be honest. Like, I'm a pretty big fan of this hand to start off with. We can pitch E-Strike to make a Surge, and then pitch the Thunderquake to heave Pulverize, and we can just kind of pass. We're setting up a Go Again card during second cycle, and we're setting ourselves up with like a blue in our hand, so we're in a pretty decent spot to be able to throw the Pulverize here, which is pretty awesome. Like, we only need to be able to keep 2 cards to throw the Pulverize, which is fantastic. One of the debates here that I would have with myself is, how would I block if my opponent was threw a CNC at us? Because it's possible they have CNC Pummel in their hand. Like, that is very, very possible here. It is worth noting that our opponent's on Crater Fists instead of Gauntlets. Not that that really matters. The only time that that really matters is when you sniff out they have a Pummel and you can block with Gauntlets to try and save yourself a point of damage, but you're more than likely not going to stop the actual Pummel effect. So it's just, I don't know. Like, I think that there are small percentage points with playing Gauntlets of Iron Will over Crater Fist, but I think that Gauntlets of Iron Will is just strictly a better card. I'm gonna refresh here. Not sure what my opponent's doing. Uh-oh. There we go. So, hammer for 7. So I have to give 2 pieces of equipment here to stop this if I want to throw the Pulverize, which, to be fair, I think is fine. Let's give Test of Strength, I guess. We'll give Test of Strength and these 2. Blocking with the Test of Strength is technically over-blocking, but I think it's fine. Like, I definitely don't want to have 2 Tests of Strengths in my next hand, so we get to block this out. We're giving up some equipment here. I get to make a new Surge and throw the Pulverize, which I think is really good. Like, just being able to throw the Pulverize is awesome. Pulverize in the Guardian matchup gives you so many points. Like, you get so much value out of playing this back and forth. Let's see. They had 64, 5. They loaded 70 cards, and we loaded 65. Yeah, so they have 5 more cards than us, so they might be trying to play the long game here and like grind us out, which means we probably need to find a way to get tempo pretty early so that we can try to like just keep pressuring offense and like make up the gap in the cards. Because they started with 5 more cards in their deck. So we need to find a way to catch up on those cards in some fashion. I mean, even if you throw hammer for 2, I'm just going to give you a card. Like, if you block 6, take 8, and then throw hammer for 2, like, I'm just going to block. Like, okay. So this is for 6 because it's from Arsenal, which means you're at 9. So you have to have like another unmovable from hand. No, you just decided to take the damage. All right. I mean, that's fine. Like, make a surge and pass. Unfortunately, we're not able to use the Zealous Belting. So what I might do is make a surge off the Tectonic Plating with Zealous, because that'll be good for second cycle. We have a lot of good pitch second cycle, and then heave the Pulverize again, leaving the Test of Strength in our hand. I mean, I think that might just be the play. Like, I could be wrong. I don't know. That could have been an incorrect play, but like, I like being able to, I like just being able to play the Pulverizes. Like, Pulverize buys you a lot of value in the matchup. And so like being able to play our 2 Pulverizes this early in the game, I think has a lot of value for us. It's also worth noting that we've already taken 1 more card out of their deck than they've taken out of ours. Hopefully we can just like block 7 and then throw 14. That would be an ideal 21.5 card turn cycle from Guardian, I think. I mean, 21/25, depending on if it hits. So they did have a surge from last turn. So it's possible that he has like a crippling crush here. So like, considering that he can throw a crippling crush at me, I think I'm just going to take 5. We take the possibility here of like losing out on some block value if he like, you know, throws hammer. Like, we miss out on a point here, but I think that like if he's going to throw, like, he could have crippling. There's a lot of good cards he could have here, and I'm not really interested in like trying to get blown out by this, so I'd rather just save my block here. Make a surge and then throw 7. I mean, that's fine. We can still block 7, so we didn't miss out on anything, which is fine. Yeah, I mean, we can still just block 7, which is perfectly fine. And we do win. We do win the clash, so we make a gold, which is kind of cool. So I mean, we could arsenal the Cranial Crush here if we wanted to, which like seems fine. Or I could just throw, I could make a new surge and throw the Pulverize. Our deck plays pretty well off of having new surges. I don't know, but like Cranial Crush, like we're pretty good on keeping 2 cards, I would say. Let's just make a new surge. Man, Talashar's laggy this morning, or my internet is like really laggy this morning. I can't really tell which one's going on, if I'm being honest. I'm going to assume that like it's my internet based off the way like my computer's moving this morning, but the fun part is if we had had a Pummel right there, like I probably would have kept the Pummel in my hand in hopes that we did draw another blue off the Test of Strength, and I would have just taken 3. Because if we were actually able to block with the Test of Strength, win with a blue 8 like we did, we could have thrown Pummel on top of the Pulverize, which, like, not really that crazy, to be honest, but it is fun, so. But I think being able to block 7 and then just throwing 14 is like an extremely efficient turn. It looks like our opponent is going to try and block this out. Do they have a Staunch Response? A red unmovable? No, they have a Sink Below. It just says resolving the playability. I don't know if they put something on the bottom. It doesn't say. I think it used to say when they put a card on the bottom. I mean, do they have another Sink Below here? No, they're just taking 3. I don't really understand why my opponent is taking damage at certain points and why, like, I don't really understand why they are and why they aren't taking damage at certain points. Like, I don't know what our opponent is doing, if I'm being honest. Like, our opponent's, like, made some interesting decisions. Like, maybe they're just trying to, like, use their hand effectively. Because, I mean, even if they have a Crippling Crush, like, still being able to attack for 7 is still pretty good here. If they do attack for 7, I think I'm just going to give Spinal Crush and Tech Plating. Block 4, take 3, and then throw the Chokeslam. If our opponent like does nothing, then I'm probably just going to throw the Spinal Crush. So I can take nothing and throw 8, or I can take 2 and throw 9. I think I would rather throw 8. I think I would rather just block efficiently here, keep my life lead up. And if they do play a Pummel from Arsenal on this, then that's a win for us. We were pretty much like, the line was always going to be to try and arsenal the sink below here. Like, I think that was pretty much always what I wanted to be doing. I want, like, Bravo's text box is very good against us. So if they have like a crippling or something for like, you know, here in the next turn, because they could just like take a Chokeslam or give us one card and like throw a crippling or like try to dominate a Spinal. Not that Spinal would be the end of the world, because we can always just throw Hammer for 4. Like, that's the floor of our turn pretty much, is Guardian. I mean, I guess like the truest floor of our turn is like activating Tectonic Plating. Wow, give me Civic Steps there, really? That's interesting. That's really interesting, because I mean, I could like, there's a good chance I can abuse that, actually. I mean, I wouldn't say a good chance, but we can in a lot of cases, so. Okay. So if I block with Crown and take 4, I can just discard whatever I draw, and then I can go 7, go again, or 7 into 6. So I don't need to block with a card here. I'm just gonna play around the idea that they have the Pummel. Man. Talishar and or my computer are running crazy slow this morning. A lot of lag between getting all of this set up here. It's going to make for a longer game, unfortunately. So, I mean, yeah, I was like, if he does play the Pummel, like, that's fine. Ooh, I like that he's on Buckle. I actually really like that my opponent's on Buckle. I'm going to discard the Debilitate, and then I'm still going to be able to go 7, go again here, which I'm a pretty big fan of. We could alternatively like throw Cranial Crush and Arsenal this, but I mean, we're able to play it. We just like, we should. I don't see a reason not to. So we are now at a point in the game where we have 3, 4, 5, and our opponent had so we both have 5 equipment block left, and we're down 2 life. So we're like, we're technically like pretty even on life here, but I'm trying to like get a good footing. We could draw a card. I mean, we have a Surge, right? Like, we might as well draw a card. And then we can throw this and arsenal the Macho Grande. I mean, I think that's the correct play. Like, if we draw into like a Spinal Crush or a Zealous Belting, like, it's a great arsenal target. Red Thunder Quake would have been good. Like, any red card would have been good to arsenal there, but we had the blue Macho Grande to arsenal, like, if worst comes to worst. So we're just gonna try to block 6 and then throw 8 back at our opponent here. They do have 3 cards in hand, so I mean, there's quite a few things they could do here as far as like, you know, like pretty disruptive things. This is not an ideal hand by any means. They kept 3 cards. I think they want to arsenal here. So what we're going to do is block 3, take 3, make a Surge with the Command and Conquer, throw Debilitate. We haven't played any CNCs yet, so let's just block with 1. I mean, like, let's just block with 1. I think that's fine. Like, CNC's really good, and like, we still have 2 Pummels in our deck, but like, I think that blocking with 1 and leaving the 2 Pummels and 2 of that in our hand is fine. Or in our deck. I think I would rather keep the Red Thunderquake, because if there's ever a turn where I can heave it second cycle, or if I'm actually able to keep a card in my hand, or like keep 2 cards in my hand after I've arsenaled it, I can just throw 10 at them. And if we're both like at 2 or 3, throwing 10 is backbreaking. Like, throwing 10 is really good for us. Them throwing Hammer last turn gave them some card economy, like gave them like a plus in like the card economy step direction, but I don't know. Like, I think that like the card economy comes late in the game, in my opinion. I know that I was talking about how many more cards they loaded in than us in the game, which I do think is relevant. Like, I'm not sitting here telling you that like it's not relevant to like think about how many cards you have versus how many cards your opponent has in the deck. But that's what comes later in the game. What you need to worry about first, in my opinion, in the Guardian Mirror is getting tempo. Once you have established tempo and like you are like quote unquote winning the game, at that point in time, you are actually able to just like, you can, at that point in time, you can worry about cards. Because once you have tempo and your opponent's blocking more than you, if the card economy is like even remotely close, that's when you start winning the card race. Wow, we're just not drawing these hands. These hands ain't it. Chief called. This ain't it. I mean, depending on what they do, we could block with a Chokeslam and attack for an attack with an Anothos for 6. I don't know. Like, really depends on what they're looking to do here. They have used Civic Steps both times, and neither time have we been able to punish them for it, which is like pretty sad. I mean, I think we want to block 3. Like, and I mean, if they have the Pummel, they have the Pummel. Like, yeah, like it's not great for us, but like I don't know what else we're doing here. Our hand was all reds, so I don't think there's like any world where we're really doing anything anyway. We'll go ahead and discard the Chokeslam. I mean, I guess I could have just like blocked 6. If I block 6 and they play the Pummel, like I discard the Debilitate and then pitch this to make a Surge, which I think this is what we're going to do anyway. Like, our hand was just not good, so we're just going to have to make a Surge and pass. Wow. So we went all reds into triple reds. Now, to be fair, we only drew 3 cards because we had an intellect penalty, basically, but we're going to be looking to try and block 6 here and throw Command and Conquer. Like, I mean, again, like, the Command and Conquer's coming in the same hand is, like, very unfortunate for us. There's not really much I can do about that. I could alternatively block with both the Command and Conquers. Like, I would no longer have access to CNC Pummel. So Pummels will just be anytime I, had value for them. But I could block with the Command and Conquer, take 3 more, and then throw Debilitate here. That could be like a line that we take here. Because I was like, there's a heavy chance that this is just going to be Civic Steps after this. Now, the fact that they had the E-Strike means we would have gotten punished for blocking with the Civic Steps. I do think it was incorrect for me not to block with the Civic Steps. I should have there, but it ended up working out for us that we didn't. So just kind of smile and take that one. Take the small victories. Even if it was a mistake on my part, it still ended up working out pretty well. We have arsenaled this blue Macho Grande, and we have not drawn 2 blues in... This is the 3rd hand we've seen now. We had a triple red hand, we had an all red hand, and then we had another triple red hand, off of one from the previous hand. So, I mean, let's see. In 11 cards, we saw 2 blues, which is, like, kind of crazy, to be honest. Like, it's not kind of crazy. It is crazy. Like, I mean, I'm playing all of these cards for a reason. Like, I'm only on 30 blues, but, like, most victors are only on 30 blues. And I don't know why Talishar proceeds to think that, like, 30 blues institutes me having all red hands most of the time. Like, it's just, I don't know. Like, shouldn't pan out that way. Like, at 30 blues, I feel like the math should probably be that you should have, like, 2 blues in every hand. Like, arsenaling this card, I don't dislike what the decision I made. Like, arsenaling this card was, like, not a bad decision in my opinion. It just really didn't pan out for us. Like, if we draw 2 blues, we're able to block 6 and throw 8 Dominate the following turn. I think I'm just going to pitch the Clash of Vigor to play the Staunch here. I don't know. This is probably a block with Civic Steps turn. Let's block 7 like this. I like blocking 7. And we win. So the Quicken token, probably not going to abuse it here. I mean, they have no E-Strikes left in the deck. So, like, it was 100% the correct block. I thought they had only used 2, but the fact that they had used 3 just confirms what I was thinking. That it was definitely a good play there. Now, winning the Vigor does mean we can make a Surge, so hopefully we draw an actual Guardian hand that has blues in it, and we can throw Macho Grande here on the following turn. Yeah, I mean, this is fine. Like, I'm just going to throw the Staunch Response here. Like, we have one Sink Below left and one more Staunch Response left in our deck. Actually, no, both the Sink Belows are in our deck because we actually... I thought I passed here. I'm going to reload just in case, but we actually had to crown away. No. I definitely wanted to... I had passed one time and then I clicked refresh. Yeah, okay. At least my opponent was cool about it. Like, I don't know. I hate like when I do things like, when things like that happen, it's like, it's a little frustrating because it's like, it's tough sometimes. Let's see. So they have 2 equipment block left and we have 3 and we're tied, but they have all the tempo. Like, our hands continue to be good. Kind of. I mean, we hit 11 cards where we had 2 blues, which is like, I feel like hands like that will cost you the Guardian Mirror, honestly. Looks like our opponent's thinking a little bit here. I mean, he has a Zealous Belting in hand. I know that for sure. Like, my one hope, honestly, for this turn would be that my opponent, like, can't do something crazy. Okay, I mean, they can activate, like, Debilitate here, which is, like, pretty good. Like, so if we block Spinal... Tectonic Plating Gauntlets, we take 3, and then I can pitch Clash of Vigor and Rouse to throw the Macho Grande, and then keep the Pummel in my arsenal and try to set up the game to win with it. I mean, I could just throw this for 11 with the Pummel. Like, I don't think that's the correct line of play here, but I also don't think it's correct to block with the Civic Steps there. We're throwing a Macho Grande at them, not like a Spinal Crush. Like, if they had, like, just thrown the hammer, I probably would have taken 6 to throw Spinal Pummel, if I'm being honest. Like, that would have been a really good line of play for us. Even if they throw the hammer, it's probably still correct to just block 3, take 3, and then throw the Macho Grande here. Yeah, they're looking to try and end the game. If he's going to crown away here and, like, look for a 5-card hand, he's got a really good hand and he's looking to try and end the game here. I mean, okay, so he has to give up 1 card from hand. I mean, D-Reacts makes sense. Like, there's still probably at least, like, we know there's at least another copy or 2 of Unmovable in their deck. And there's probably at least another copy of Sink Below, if I had to guess. They're probably on 2 sinks, if I had to guess. Them having 4 cards in hand is kind of scary, to be honest. Like, I mean, they could do a lot of things with this. Well, I'd really like to get the Sink Below in my arsenal, but I don't know how we're going to be able to do that and play the Pummel this turn. Not with them having the Asunder here. Asunder's really good. And, like, man, giving them the Quicken token this turn could be really bad for us. I mean, it's possible he has, like, a Debilitate or something. Like, if he can throw 9 Dominate, that's really good. And now Hammer for 7. I mean, I assume you didn't just spin to Debilitate for no reason. So, if I go to 3... I can discard Sink Below Spinal and throw Hammer, make a Surge, but I'm at 3. If I block 4, I take 3, go to 7, discard Asunder, Spinal, throw Hammer for 4. I think that's the play. I think I'm supposed to put the Spinal on the Asunder on the bottom, and then discard my last 2 cards, which it's unfortunate that we hit the Pummel, but it was a chance that we had to take there, so... And then we're still at a spot where, like, if they don't have a crazy good hand, like, if, like, anything lower than, like, 10, they're now in threat of, like, only blocking the hammer with one card and then, like, dying to the pummel. Like, if they fall down to 7 or lower, like, we've kind of, like, put them in a good spot for us. But, I'm like, this is, like, the end of the game right here is where, like, you want Bravo's text box. Like, this is where Bravo stands out over Victor for sure. Because when we're both at single-digit life totals, like I think we're about to be, he could have a D-react here. If we're both at single-digit life totals and he has on-demand dominate and I don't, I'm in a bad spot. He kept all 4 cards, which is honestly terrifying. Test of Strength might be able to bail us out here for something. I don't know. Like, honestly, best case scenario here is that he wants to dominate a Spinal. I mean, we can just take 3 here. Like, this isn't Asunder. This is just Debilitate. Like, so we're going to take 3, go to 4. And then we win. Wow. So we win with a Cranial Crush, which is like best case scenario for us. And the best part about it is like this doesn't even like really represent the pummel, like in my opinion. Like we get to just we literally get to just like throw 10 here. Now, there might be some world where it was better to play the Asunder and then make a surge with this and come in for 7 because Asunder is really good. But I like throwing 10 because my opponent has to think about how they want to block here. And we do have 2 floating, so they kind of have to respect the pummel. But at the same time, like, I don't know that they will. I don't know that I would in this situation because, like I couldn't have blocked anymore if I wanted to. So, like, and I'm not going to play the pummel until they do something here. Like, that's fine. Like, right now, like, if they want to sink and do something, that's perfectly fine with me. Because they're going to 1. I'm going to see. I'm going to push it here. I'm going to play it. Like, I think this is a good time to play it and see if we can cross the finish line. Because if they don't have it here, if they don't have another D-react, and, like, we win the game on the spot. If they got greedy trying to go to 1 here to, like, try and end the game, like, that's... Man, winning the Test of Strength off of the blue, off the Cranial Crush was insane. Okay, so right now they're still only taking 6. Now they could have like a blue unmovable here and just cover it all up, which would be bad news bears for us because then they swing hammer for 4. But we do get a whole hand at that point. I don't know. Like it's a tough decision making. All right, so they get to keep 2 cards here, and they're now at 1 and I'm at 4. So we have to try and find a way to close the game. Keeping in mind that we do not have access to the Golden Sun, I take it out in this matchup. I'm not a fan of the Golden Sun against Bravo or Trounce. I take out those 2 cards. We're going to go like this. So, I mean, if they attack for 6... we can block with... Let's tell our opponent we're thinking here. So the difference between 8 and 7 could actually be really relevant if they draw a sink below. So throwing 8 means they guarantee have to give us 3 cards here to stay out of this, or an unmovable, which is essentially 3 cards. So I think blocking like this, since we have the surge to throw Debilitate, is correct. Now, like, there might be... Actually, was I supposed to go to 1? Was I supposed to give the blue and go to 1 to throw E-Strike, putting this on the bottom, and then throw Hammer? It's 2 breakpoints, which technically takes their whole hand. So I actually made a misplay there. Yeah, that was a total misplay on my part. I could have blocked with the disable, the blue disable, played E-Strike, naming go again, putting the Debilitate on the bottom, and then swung Hammer. They're forced to give me 2 cards. Well, I guess if they have a sink below, they're only forced to give me 3 cards, but it's giving me a potential to take every card out of their hand. Yeah, that was definitely a misstep on my part. So it's good to know that like catching that as it happens is a good thing to catch there. They had the sink below, so like we still would have only have taken 3 cards out of their hand, but it was still correct to make the play that I was going to. So this is really good because we get to arsenal the Staunch Response here to like try and like keep us out of trouble. Even though maybe it's better to arsenal the Prime to fight. I think I want this as like a get out of jail free card. Like I really like having, we could have put this on the bottom. Actually, hang on. I'm sorry. We have to put this on the bottom because we can just make a surge and swing 6, which like guarantees both cards out of their hand here. Yeah. Like it's habit, it's like instinct for me to want to just put the Staunch Response in my arsenal because the Staunch Response in my arsenal is like such a big win. Like having that is like such a get out of jail free card, but this was definitely a better play. Put this on the bottom. Actually, can we just win the game with Dominate here? Like is 8 Dominate just the way to go to try and end the game? So depends on what they have in their arsenal. I mean, 8 Dominate's probably just correct here, right? I don't know. There's probably some argument to be made to, like, go 5 go again into the buckling blow. My opponent said good game there, so I think we finally got him. Nice. So the Dominate was able to close out the game, but there is probably some argument there to be able to throw the E-Strike for 5 go again into the buckling blow because again it takes all 4 cards out of their hand and we're like continuing to generate card economy, but Dominate just ends the game. The first thing I want to talk about from game 1 is the fact that I was able to heave a Pulverize on turn 0, throw the Pulverize, and then turn around, heave another Pulverize, and then throw it again. That bought me so much value and so much tempo early on in the game, and I was forcing so many cards out of my opponent's hand. A few turns later in the game, my opponent and I had been playing the back and forth game where we're blocking, throwing our attacks, and nothing really crazy is happening. And then all of a sudden, I make a surge and arsenal a blue Macho Grande thinking I'll push some damage through. Well, then I go through 11 cards and I only see 2 blues. I never had the opportunity to actually throw the Macho Grande unless I was going to take all of my opponent's damage just to throw 8 back, which is a very bad play to make. After going through that stretch of the game where I only saw 2 blues and 11 cards, I was genuinely starting to get worried about my place in the game because I had given my opponent all the tempo just trying to stay alive and keep from drowning, so it was really tough to keep up and I was worried about that state of the game. Late in the game, I was actually able to win a test of strength, block with a Civic Steps to stop the Debilitate from having its crush effect after they'd activated Bravo. This was so big because I actually won the test of strength with a blue, which gave me the ability to make a surge, throw Red Thunderquake for 10, and hold up the Pummel, putting me in such a good spot and forcing lethal if they didn't have the second defense reaction right there. A few turns before the end of the game, my opponent actually throws a Command and Conquer at us when I was at 4. Now, I made the decision to block 6 and then throw the Debilitate for 8 because it forces 3 cards out of our opponent's hand. We could have made the decision to block 3, take 3, go to 1, go E-Strike with Go Again, putting the Debilitate on the bottom, and then throw the Hammer for 4. If they don't have a defense reaction, we actually take all 4 cards out of their hand, but if they do have a D-React, we only take 3 cards, and we actually leaving ourselves at 1, which makes us blocking the Hammer a lot worse. So I don't really know which one line was correct there. You hear me say during the game that I think I made a mistake, and from a first point of view, I do think I made a mistake. But the fact that they had the sink below would have put us in a really bad spot. So I'm curious to know what you think about my decision there. Okay, so we're playing against Bravo, and Bravo chooses to go first here. They load 67 cards in against us, and we load 61, so that's going to be a pretty important... It's going to be pretty important. We have to keep up with that. They're also on Anothos instead of Sledge here. They're on, like, Bravo can get away with playing... Bravo can actually get away with playing Anothos and Tunic in their deck, and I don't really think that Victor has that capability, if I'm being honest. They're also on Remembrance. Oh god, they're like on Fatigue Bravo. They're on like a hard Fatigue Bravo is what we're looking at right here. So I kind of just like making a surge, throwing the Zealous Belting, and then like we can make a surge, throw the Zealous Belting, and then throw hammer here. Like it's pretty good turn to start with here. It's a turn that's definitely going to buy us some cards from our opponent. Yeah, so again, I don't know that they're on Fatigue Bravo, but I can only assume that if you are running Remembrance, then you only have one game plan, and it's to like draw the game out, you know, 30 turns and try to fatigue me and run me out of cards here. Okay, I assume my opponent wants to block differently here. Okay. So they give the Civic Steps, which I think that's a very good block. If I'm actually playing Sledge and Tunic, you have to be a little bit more careful about that, because like Sledge is just an action. Do this. So like it's not a once per turn action. You can Sledge multiple times a turn if you want to. So we're just gonna pass. I mean, take 4 and then go Rouse, make a surge, hammer. Actually, I could just go Rouse into disable, right? No, I can't because I'm one short here. But I think this is fine to take 4. Like I wanna play my go again hands here. I wanna like start putting my opponent on the back foot as early as possible. And also setting up the Asunder play for second cycle is really good. I think there's a lot of value in setting up a Asunder for second cycle. We could also notably throw the Command and Conquer here after this. I'm going to be honest, I really don't want to throw the Command and Conquer unless I have the Pummel with it. Like, I have to make my opponent respect it. If I was on 3 Pummels, so I'm only on 2 in my list, but if I was on 3, I would tell you that I could be convinced to throw a Command and Conquer to bluff it in certain situations. That's all extremely situationally dependent upon what my hand looks like, what my opponent's doing. Like there's a lot there to debate and unpack, in my opinion, but it could be talked about. So the fun part would have been there if my opponent had given me the Civic Steps. I could have went hammer into the Command and Conquer, which would have been really good. There'd have been a lot of value in that for us, to be able to make that play. Yeah, they're on hard Fatigue Bravo if they're on yellow staunches, for God's sakes. So we can't really play the Rouse here. Like there's just not really a whole lot we can do. We can block with the Clash of Vigor, and we can pitch both of the Rouses here. Take 1. And they win. We have a Asunder on top. Okay. I mean, the Vigor token for them isn't really that big of a deal. But we do get to throw the Spinal Crush here. We get to make a surge and throw the Spinal Crush, which is fine. I mean, I guess technically, if I wanted to take 4 there, I could have pitched Rouse to play Rouse and reveal Spinal and the Clash of Vigor there. I could have technically have revealed 13 and thrown 7 into 6, but I really don't think that's a good hand from us. Like I really don't like that play. I don't know, like that hand feels very, like that whole line feels very mediocre. I don't like taking 4 for that. Like if we're going to take, you know, like 4 to 6 points, like we're going to try to set up to push a lot of blocks from our opponent or a lot of damage. So, this is probably going to be 7 if I had to guess. Like they could go again and then throw the hammer at me. So considering that they are choosing go again, should I give Civic Steps here is a question. Like, is it a correct decision to give the Civic Steps? Because I can block with Clash of Vigor, and then I can throw the Command and Conquer from Arsenal and then still play the Pummel. Now, they get a get out of jail free here because of the Crown of Providence, but I don't think I think we can just take 2 here. We do win the Clash, which is kind of nice because it means we can play the Pummel without actually having to play the Command and Conquer here. I mean, this is fine, honestly. So throwing the CNC afterwards is fine. The Clash of Vigor actually let them do this. So I'm just going to crown this away, and like we'll just try to set up a good arsenal here. So I mean, this is a perfectly fine hand. Like, I still think we want to throw... Do we want to throw the CNC Pummel here? I mean, I could technically just throw the Thunderquake here for 10 and then arsenal the Pummel and try to set up for a hand where I can actually pummel something that matters. Because they're not going to give me the crown. We did just put a CNC on the bottom, so... well, I guess I can't... Let's see, this costs 6, 1, 4... This is going to cost 5, actually, because of the surge. So we have 4, 5, so I arsenal the Pummel here. Actually, I guess I'd want to arsenal the Command and Conquer. So yeah, let's arsenal the Command and Conquer, and let's throw the Thunderquake. This way we have Pummel CNC lined up together for second cycle, which is going to be insanely good for us if we're at a high enough life total to be able to hang on to it, to keep all of our cards. And if not, a second cycle Pummel is always really good anyway. So we'll see what they do here. I assume, okay, Fate. I was like, I assume there's some kind of D-React here in my not so distant future. And they go to 27. So the game's progressing in a pretty typical fashion. Like, it's progressing pretty quickly here. Block 3, take 1, and throw the Spinal. Like, I think that's fine. Oh, they played a Sigil to go back to 30. So, okay, so we're no longer up life. But, I mean, they'll probably take 2 here, or take 3, block 2 cards and take 3. And then, I mean, that's fine. Like, so they do have 2 CNCs left, and that we have yet to see a Pummel. Now, I'm going to be honest. If they're on, like, this Fatigue style Bravo, they probably bring in Pummels in this matchup, actually. For us specifically, they probably bring them in. Excuse me. Okay. It's funny how good Spinal Crush is in a lot of matchups, but like in this matchup, it's like very mid. Because it doesn't really do a lot. Like, there's just not a lot that it can do. So let's see. We've seen all 3 Fate for scenes now, which means we're getting through the rest of the Staunches and we're getting through Sync Belows here. They have a huge leg up in this matchup. We have 2 copies of Staunch Response that we have in our deck, and they have, like, they just have so much that they can do here. Okay, I mean, this is, again, like, let's take 1 here, and we'll throw the Thunderquake. Like, we'll make a Surge and throw the Thunderquake again. Like, this is a perfectly fine hand to, like, take 1 point of damage on. We're taking 1 to throw 10. Like, that is a winning turn cycle for us every time. And plus, we're going to need to get all of the D-Reacts out of our opponent's deck so that we can actually start, like, playing, like, a more even, like, tempo game where they don't just have, like, Staunches and things like that to bail them out of bad spots. So at this point, we have 3, 6, 9 equipment left to block with, and they have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So technically, we're up 1 life if you count everything, but they have a lot of value in the fact that, like, they're playing probably, like, 7 to 9 copies of Staunch Response. I mean, they're on Yellow Staunch. Yellow Staunch Response sends a message, and it's that we are here to, like, try and play the long game and run you out of cards if I have to here. Like, they're probably going to play a Staunch right here and pitching 2 cards, if I had to guess. Yeah, and they're going to cover up 10. I mean, I assume he's going to pitch 2 cards here. Like, ooh, okay. Interesting. So he's actually taking 3. No, has a respite. Okay. So he's taking nothing, but he's going to do nothing on his turn, which means we have a chance to do something pretty good here if we draw into a good hand. I was like, we were really hoping for something like a... I don't know. We were really hoping for like a go again hand, like a Rouse hand would have been really good right there. I'd have settled for a Pummel on the CNC turn that we have here. Just gonna throw the Debilitate. Like, it's the best thing I can do here. I could bluff CNC Pummel. I get 1 CNC that I can bluff pretty much because I'm only playing 2 copies, but I really don't like to do it. Like, I'm really not a fan of bluffing the CNC Pummel if I don't have it. We're also down on Crown of Providence, which is tough because it means that like I don't want to just keep cards in my arsenal for no reason. But I mean, so if I take 4 and go to 23 and can keep my cards, I can actually go Zealous Belting if they give me the Civic Steps, throw Anothos, and then throw CNC, which is like insane. But I don't think I'm really playing around my opponent doing something like that, so I think I'd rather just block 3. It is a safer bet to just block 3 there and play this like slower game that our opponent is like they admittedly want to play, but I think it is better that way. Because if you have 3 cards in hand, they're not very inclined to block with a Zealous Belting, in my opinion. Like we're not really incentivizing them to block that way. So they just take the damage there, and then we're just gonna make a surge and swing the hammer. Something like this, like they could still give us 2 cards and have CNC Pummel if CNC or Pummel is one of the cards in their arsenal. It would have been phenomenal to be able to throw all of the above right there, but so this is again with Tunic. Our opponent could throw CNC at us after this. I do think I'm gonna give them the Civic Steps though. I don't think. Like, I don't know. Like, they probably want to arsenal a card here. This could be a mistake, and we could get blown out by it, but... Like, we could get blown out here, but I really don't think we will. Like, I'm just going to block 3 here, and I'm just going to plan to play the Anothos for 6. I could have taken all 6 there to try and throw Macho Grande for 10 Dominate, which would have been really good, but they want to arsenal the card that they have. So, like, it's probably a D-react in some fashion, and right now, they have 6 equipment block left, and we have 7, and we're technically up a life, so, like, we're going to go up to 43, and then down to 39. So we're in a spot right now where we're actually drawing cards out of their deck and like playing to the efficiency of like our deck as opposed to them playing like the extra staunches to play the long grindy game. So we are playing to draw cards out of their deck right now. So there's a staunch from hand. That's the second yellow staunch. I like they're on hold the line too. So this is hard fatigue, bravo. Okay. So they're like on hard fatigue. I mean, I can just block with the Test of Strength here, I guess. Like we have them in here because, like, occasionally they pan out for us, like this, where we reveal a red Macho, and, like, it's, like, cool, like, we have an extra card here, but, I mean, I am going to throw the Macho. Like, the Test of Strength worked out in my favor to draw, like, a more efficient hand here, where I can make a Surge and still throw 10 Dominate. And they could have another Staunch in their arsenal, but either way, like, I think this is an okay turn cycle for us. Because, again, we took no damage, we're up on equipment, and we're playing to the out there. It's worth noting that if we did lose that clash, like, and they got the gold there, or even if we tied, it didn't really matter to me. Like, the clash wasn't super important. I leave in Test of Strengths in this matchup because they block 4. Not because of the ability. If we happen to win clashes and get better turns out of it like we just did, cool. That's some extra points on top. That's the icing on top of the cake here, but our turn was going to be block 4, make a Surge, and then throw Debilitate with 2 floating. So technically we were representing a Pummel, but we don't have a Pummel here. Like, we have been sitting on the CNC for like the better part of like a decade to try and get it out. Is our opponent going to pitch a red to play a Staunch here? Or they have a Respite? Like, they could cover this up pretty easily. Like, it's not crazy to think that they're going to cover this up, in my opinion. Okay, so they wanted to take 2 there, but they had to pitch everything. Okay, so we're going to go Cranial, Disable, then Debilitate. And again, we don't really have a go again hand here. Like, we could try to draw a card to like make something happen, but I don't really think that's where we want to be. I think we'll just make a surge, throw the Spinal, and then like we're still representing Pummel here, which we have been sitting on a card in our arsenal for the better part of, I don't know, like 5 or 6 turns now. So like it may be longer. I'm not exactly sure. Which means we could just have the Pummel and our opponent like might just be forced to respect it here. Now they could have like a sink below or anything to try and like cover it up here, but okay, so this hand, they do not have the Pummel. Which is worth noting. Like, they do not have the Pummel here. I mean, I think we're just supposed to block 7. If we block with the Thunderquake and the Test of Strength, we can throw Command and Conquer, and then we can Arsenal the Staunch. No, it's fine. I'll give them a gold. Like, it's not the end of the world to, like, give them a gold. Like, the clashes aren't, like, the most important part of what we're trying to do here. So I'm just going to make a surge and throw Command and Conquer. Our opponent is just going to give us 2 cards here. Like, this is a hand where our opponent will just give us 2 cards. I can't imagine there is a world on Earth where they're going to give us Crown of Providence here. And if they do, it is a big mistake. They like Crown of Providence is your get out of jail free card here. When we gave our Crown of Providence earlier, it's because they were representing Command and Conquer Pummel. Like, they were actively representing CNC Pummel. Now, they only have 1 CNC left in their deck, and because they're like Fatigue Bravo, they could be on like 1 copy of Pummel. I don't know. They could be on multiple copies. Like, I don't know a lot about like this list. I don't know if this is like Charles Dunn's list. I don't know a lot about it. But I do know that this hand sucks. This hand is not good at all. Yeah, this hand's not great, like, in any fashion. Like, there's no Anothos for 6 here. Like, the quad red here is, like, really unfortunate for us. So let's just block 5 here. I think this is the best thing we can be doing. Hopefully we, like, I was like, hopefully we win off of a blue, but we don't. So we're just going to give them a gold, which, again, like, they can draw cards with it randomly, but, like, I don't think it really matters, if I'm being honest. So we can attempt to draw a card here. Like, there are no more clashes left in our deck, and I don't have Golden Suns in the deck. I don't like Golden Suns in this matchup. We can pitch. We can pitch the Pummel. Like, we can just come in for 4 here. We can pitch Chokeslam. Actually, we can pitch Pummel and Staunch Response to crack the gold, hit a blue, throw 8. We hit a red, like, our turn is just, we do nothing. But we're playing 33 blues, so I mean, oh, we knew we had the Asunder on top. Duh, I'm an idiot. Ignore that. Let's pretend like I didn't just, like, completely not act like I knew what was on top. I do get a kick out of when I do stuff like that on Talishar, because, like, in my head when I play in paper, I always remember what's on top of my deck. Like, I'm always like, okay, noted, this is on top of my deck for, like, next turn or something like that. So I always play differently, so it's funny to, it's always funny when I do stuff like that online. I always get a kick out of it. All right, so they end up net taking 3. We're gonna go Staunch, then Asunder. I mean, depending on what they do here, we could just give them, like, we could take some damage here and go Zealous into Chokeslam. Like, and it's a pretty solid turn for us. We could also, like, pitch the Cranial Crush to play Staunch Response, and then pitch Chokeslam to make a surge, and then activate, and then swing Anothos for 6, Arsenal the Zealous Belting. So we have a couple of options depending upon what our opponent does this turn. Having Staunch Response and Arsenal gives you a lot of, like, value over the course of the game. So we still have 6 equipment block, and they currently have 6 equipment block, and we're up 8 life. So it is important to keep your life advantage. Like, I'm a wholehearted believer in that, but... So this is just block 3, send the Staunch Response with the Cranial Crush, swing for 4 Arsenal. Because we have to block this. Like, I mean, I guess I could technically give Staunch and like this. I don't want to give 2 cards because then I can't do anything. So I'm just going to have to... I don't want to pitch 2 cards is what I was trying to say. I could overpitch, take 1, and keep all of these cards in my deck. Not attack for anything. Now, it's way better to just still take 1. I'm still only taking 1 this way, but I'm only taking 1 this way, but I'm getting to attack for 4 versus keeping 1 more card in my deck. And I don't think that keeping 1 more card in my deck is worth the 4 points of me attacking. Because even though technically, like, they only have to block... They don't have to block this at all if their hand is good enough, but... Yep, Sink Below. I don't think we've seen any Sink Belows yet. There's 2 more Sink Belows in the deck. We have seen 2 Oasis Respites, and we've seen all of their... We've seen all of the... So we've seen... We have 2 Sink Belows. We have 1 more Sigil of Solace to get through, and we have probably 1 more Respite, if I had to guess. I kind of want to block 3, but also, like, whatever they're going to do after this is also kind of scary. So, like, I mean, I guess technically we have the red Macho we can block with if we need to. I'm still down 6 cards, which is, like... I think we're supposed to go to 16 to Arsenal the red Macho here. If I'm being honest, I think the life... Like, I have to use my life total as an advantage. Like, I have to use that resource to my advantage because my opponent has more cards in their deck than me. They are going to win the long, grindy game of trying to deck each other out. Like, we're still, like, we're halfway through our deck and we're both sub 20. So I'm going to have to try and use my advantage here to push as much damage as I can. The problem is going to be hands like this where they're able to Arsenal D-reacts and, like, only take, like, minimal damage here and, like, still push. So attacking for 6, like, we probably get 2 cards here. And then I really want to throw this for 10 Dominate. Like, the red Macho Grande is insane here. We've already thrown 1 red Macho Grande. I'm pretty sure we've already attacked with 1. Maybe I'm losing my mind. Nope, there's red Macho Grande. There's still blue Macho Grandes in our deck, and there's 1 more red Macho Grande. So, like, we're still in a spot where we can, like, push, like, quite a bit of dominated damage if they get low enough. Now, we're going to have to use some of our dominated attacks to get them low enough. Well, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions. I mean, pitch this to play this and then come in with Macho. That's pretty good. If I have to take 10 and go to 6 here, that's fine. If I just take 6 and go to 10, that's also fine. Like, this is a really good hand for us. Normally, putting 2 Rouse the Ancients together is absolutely terrible and not something you want to see second cycle. Excuse me. But it really worked out for us here. We've seen all of our Zealous Beltings. I'm pretty sure that's all of them. Yeah, I was like, we played 1 really early. And this is the last Rouse that we're pitching right here. So, like, we're... Okay, so they're going to pitch a card to cover this up. Yep. That makes sense. And then I'm going to come in for 10. Like, pushing 10 Dominate here is really good. Like, this is a solid turn. We're pushing 17 points, 10 of which is Dominate. And it's worth noting that, like, as Victor, we don't get a lot of Dominate unless we build it into our deck. Bravo gets Dominate built on, like, almost every attack he plays because of his text box, which does give us a harder time in this matchup. It's also worth noting that my opponent has done a fantastic job at hanging onto the Crown of Providence. Like, I really tip my hat to them for hanging onto the Crown of Providence here. They have sat on that for as long as they possibly could. Like, I mean, we're like almost in single-digit life totals on both sides of the board, and my opponent still has their Crown of Providence. Now, we do have a Command and Conquer Pummel coming up, I think 2 hands from now. I'm not 100% sure when it's coming up, but I think it's 2 hands from now. That's the last yellow Staunch. That's the last yellow Staunch. They just played a red Staunch. So there's one more red Staunch somewhere and one more blue Staunch somewhere, if I had to guess. So they're going to go to 8. We're going to go Thunderquake, disabled, then the Rouse. Here's our CNC Pummel. I mean, I can take 4 to throw the CNC Pummel, and they're forced to use their crown here. I really don't like taking 4, though. Like, I'm going to be honest. Like, I think we have to, though. Like, I think we have to push the possibility of what it is. It's also worth noting that I was miscounting by 1. The Command and Conquer Pummel came up this hand instead of the following hand. If we're making a surge, I'm okay arsenaling the Macho Grande here if I need to. I mean, we took 4 to swing CNC Pummel here. Like, and like they have to know it's coming. Like, I can only imagine they know it's coming at this point in time. So they're going to take 5. Like, they're going to take 5 and discard a card. Like, I mean, they could have the last respite, but even if they have the last respite, they're still taking 1, and they're forced to pitch. They effectively get rid of 3 cards if they did that. But now they're down to 3, and they have 2 points of equipment block left. Uh-oh. It's like, that's terrifying. 3, 5, 7 is not ideal for us. Yeah, that's very unfortunate for us. Good from our opponent, but bad from us. So this is where Bravo's text box really starts to win him games, like 100%, because now we're in a spot where like even the CNC Pummel wasn't enough to like take away what he had there. I mean, he could give us the Tunic if he wants to. Any Bravo activation like kind of ends the game here, right? Or Asunder ends the game. I mean, we're going to block 5 and take 2. Yep, that is unfortunate, but it was a good game. Our opponent played very well. I'm not bothered about losing that game. We played 19 turns where like I feel like I took the spots I needed, and my opponent was just able to close it out there at the end. Pretty early on in this game, I had a turn set up where I was able to go Zealous Belting into Command and Conquer, but I actually took the line of going Zealous Belting into the Hammer. And looking back on that line, I really disagree with it, because if I throw Command and Conquer, I'm able to take 2 cards out of their hand. And if my opponent's hand is really bad, I'm able to take Crown of Providence there and set up Command and Conquer Pummel for later in the game. I didn't throw the Command and Conquer there because I wanted to hang on to it for a turn when I had the Pummel to force them to use the Crown of Providence. But I think in moments like this, you have to take what comes to you, and you have to throw Command and Conquer to really force your opponent's hand to be awkward. A few turns later, my hand is Asunder, Clash of Vigor, Pummel, Command and Conquer, and then I have a Command and Conquer in my arsenal. My opponent throws E-Strike at me with Tunic on 3, 1 resource floating, and a card in hand. My thought process was here, I'll block with the Clash of Vigor. If I win, I can throw the CNC from Arsenal, play the Pummel, and then I can Arsenal the next CNC. If I block with Clash of Vigor and I lose, I can play the CNC from Arsenal and still play the Pummel by pitching the other Command and Conquer without making a surge. So I'm getting some value here. The problem was my opponent had the Command and Conquer to follow it up with. Now, more than likely, they're just going to follow it up with the Hammer after that, so I'm just okay taking some damage. But since my opponent had the Command and Conquer, I was forced to give them Crown of Providence, and it really made my hand awkward and like forced me into some weird spot there where I wasn't able to play CNC Pummel. So I think that's a small mistake on my part on not recognizing earlier that they could have had the Command and Conquer, and I'm probably supposed to take some damage to try and keep cards there. My opponent was able to close out the game with the biggest advantage that Bravo has, on-demand dominate. My opponent was able to go Dominate into Crippling Crush, and then the next turn Asunder Anothos. The Dominate was just too much and I couldn't block enough, so I just ended up losing the game. I tip my hat to my opponent because they played very patiently and they waited for their spots, and they took the dominated turns at the end of the game to close it out when they felt like they could. So my opponent played very clean, and it's not a game that I'm really upset losing. Guys, if you see anything you think I missed, let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear about it. If you liked the video, be sure to like and subscribe for more content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take it easy, guys.